Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today I'm going to do a breakdown of my track, Dude Man Bro, of Smiles All Day, Smiles 4 Days. It's about a minute long, so I'm going to play it for you real quick. We're going to talk about how it's composed, the workflow, the sounds I used, the contact libraries, and some of the compositional techniques. I'll probably put the sounds I used at the end because unless you own Contact, that might just be a bunch of not really relevant stuff. I'll also put if you happen to own a bunch of instruments you want to try and substitute in, because you have to have my contact libraries for this to really work because it's all MIDI. So, but I'll provide the FLP in the description as well. So here it is. Yes, that was Smiles for Days. If you're not familiar, this is actually a genre of corporate music, meaning it's for like corporate events, like I don't know, a dog commercial or something. So put whatever you think this music would go really well to in the description, I guess, or in the comments, not the description. But there were a couple sample pops and clicks or just dropouts. That's because my computer's struggling a little bit. I think I left my sample buffer size a little bit on the low side for this. But anyways, let's talk about the nifty tricks and the general. So I wrote it just largely as an exercise and to use a bunch of libraries I recently came into contact with. Pun there. So a couple of tricks. Let's look at the first one. It's this bass drop here. So I used... So the bass, I layered it with a Rickenbacker bass. This is the Rickenbacker bass. It sounds, if I can get to the bass on here, sounds like this. Am I too high? Yeah. And it's got some really nifty slides. I actually ended up not taking advantage of the actual slides they recorded. Instead, what you're hearing is the Rickenbacker bass comes in here to sound, more like a bass, but I supplemented it with a tone. And that tone can be heard down here at Harmerland. So that's actually playing right there. So when you hear the bend, it makes it sound really smooth because the bend is using a glide note on Harmer, which is this guy right here, or girl, I guess, depending on your gender of bass. So we're going to hit solo, and this is what it sounds like. So that's what's playing there. And if I bring in the bass at the same time... So you hear the bass come in, sort of this like thing, but when in context it fits. But then when we come to pattern 8, they complement each other quite nicely. And that was it. So I thought that was a pretty handy way of doing it. It was not, I spent forever trying to get a smooth glide out of the Rickenbacker bass so that I could have that moment. And I ended up just doing this instead because I just couldn't get it. Sometimes it works out amazingly. In this scenario, I was just having a hard time getting one that bend down at the speed I wanted it to. So that's what I did there. The drums are, if you're looking to bang out a track really quickly and you're not looking for like the most incredible drum line, the drums will play a supporting role. Well, this is the answer for you. So Contact has a lot of, or Complete has a lot of these drum libraries. If you scroll down here, where are they? There's Studio Drummer, 60 Drummer, 70, 80s. 70 sounds super dry. You'd probably really dig it. So we have all of these, and I use them all the time. They have these MIDI loops that come with them. And normally, I don't know, these things, some people are like, oh, lame-o, you should program all your own loops and stuff. There's like a balance between programming your own loops, not programming. It depends on what you're going for. So these are actually, I believe, recorded into using an electric drum kit. So they have like actual dynamic levels and they've got all the natural feel of a real drummer. So these are really, really handy. You can mix and match them. So what I did here was I simply took it, I dragged, you can hit play to preview these. So you see, they just have tons of options. You really have to go through here. They have a huge variety. Like if you can't find something you like in here, that's pretty incredible. Just go program it yourself, I guess. Also, if you can play it in, you just play it in. That's pretty fun. But this is a really excellent way. Once you've selected one that you like using their preview thing, make sure you turn that off because you might forget and it'll keep playing and playing and playing. It'll be like, where is this second set of drums coming from? You could take it, drag it, and you can actually drag it onto a MIDI channel. I'll put it on something I'm not using. And there it is. And you can come in here and actually see all the drums. Now, as far as mixing, because you got to now mix it, right? You can use the internal mixer inside here. You can send the samples out to their own mixer tracks. Or what I'll do a lot of times is I'll make a separate one if I want to separate something. Like if I want the kick on a separate track, I'll just clone this and then always move the kick down. Or you could go inside to the mixer because maybe you have some dope processing you'd rather use, which I find myself doing a lot. You can get a really nice sound out of here, but you can also send it out to a separate mixer track. I'm trying to remember how I did that. There is a way to do it. I just forgot right now, but there is a way. I didn't do that in this particular case. Everything's just going out to one drum channel. So yeah, that's what's going on. If I change it here, channel 7. So come over here. Stadium kit. There we go. It's on that channel. So that's what's going on there. So, okay. So that was the deal there. And so you simply just find one you like, drag and drop, and there you go. That was like bang, solid. Then you simply unsolo everything. As far as the workflow went and the general texture of the song, the way it works is I introduce one sound with a melody at the beginning. Okay, so there's a melody. The melody is spaced while the background is not. This gives room for the background to develop and the melody to develop. So that's my intro. So that's what's going on there. A quick side note, these cymbals, when you saw those are coming from LA Drama Drums. The only reason this is here is because I wanted to use it. And I also wanted cymbals that didn't sound like trash. There's a lot of great cymbals included with Contact, but they don't always fit every need. And so these are excellent for that. So anyways, we have the original. We have our melody, and the melody's been spaced. You see all this rest, and the melody, if it was like held out like bom, 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 that would take away from the general feel of the upbeat side that we're doing. So I wanted it to be short and sort of this plucky thing. So we've got at this point, not a super interesting thing going on. It's just an introduction to what's going to come. So I develop it by adding in a guitar, introducing a counter melody to my previous melody that will actually begin to play harmonic parts. So it's the same piece. You just heard it, but now you've got this new aspect. You're like, oh, it could sound like this. Like, wow. Also, I'm very pointed with my chords, meaning I say chord, chord, chord. Like, this is my harmony. Like, that's what I do. And it's an important thing for songs like this just to be blatantly obvious with your harmonic structure. It's like a staple of how these things sound. And I didn't really say sound that loud. How these things sound. So, okay, that's what's going on there. We develop it. I bring in this counter melody with Gloves Glock. That is a library I made, so I'm pretty proud of it. I probably could have brought down the high end on it a bit, but this is Gloves Glock. If I remember, I'll put a link to it in the description, or if someone comments, I'll update it with a link. And so that's what's going on there. The Strummer acoustics used to make the guitar. Nothing really too crazy there. Just grabbed, dropped, and started doing stuff. So after that, we reach a point where now our theme has been stated. We've developed our theme a little bit. we've got a counter melody going. So now all I need to do is drop it, which is what that bass drop is for in the drums. And then we start playing through with our main chorus, and it's just simply a fully developed version with a whole bunch of sounds playing the main theme, the dun 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 dun, with a slight variation the second time, and just variation in the background chords, which is a bump 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 bump. So I'm just looking for ways to fill in gaps, make you experience it in new ways, which is like, for example, I use the strings to do that. If we listen here, so you can hear a bump, 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 bump. Those are the strings while the piano is still doing its thing. So you're experiencing all these things in new ways, but predictable ways. They fit inside the old ways. So it's a very organic, natural process. I have samples dropping out on different instruments all over the place. The more I listen to it. I want to show you sort of the reasons, some of the reasons for the sounds that I chose for the lead here. So I chose a whistling sound because it seemed to really fit. I'm using Rialo whistle. It's always been on sale. They always have a month sale. It's like a marketing strategy. So maybe it'll not be on sale this month, just like randomly for no reason. But every time I go there, it's like July sale, August sale. So I'm pretty sure it's always on sale. So you can get it for around like $25. And it's really cool. It's a little whistling library. It sounds like this. Whoops, I hit the wrong thing, man. And you can make it sound a whole bunch of different ways. Working with it was different than I thought it was going to be. But if I play out, so you notice these notes are rather short. I wanted the whistle for the vibe it had. But you see that by itself wouldn't quite do it. It wouldn't cut through unless I like raised up the volume a lot. So I had a couple problems. So what I did was I layered it with a Glock. And the reason I didn't just like make it like long is because it would get in the way of what's going on in the background. It's going to be unnecessary stuff that also takes away from the bump, 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 and the subdivisions I have going on. We're going to get this longer feel, and I don't want that longer feel. So I deliberately chose short notes, but the short notes didn't sound awesome by themselves. So when I layer it with the Glock, they'll form a new sound that will sound like the way I want it to. It'll fit the texture I'm looking for. So you may have not heard the guy whistling, or girl. I don't know. Could it be a girl whistling? I don't know. Who knows? The mysterious whistler for that library is not revealed. Maybe it has, and I just haven't looked at it. And so that's what's going on there for the lead. And that is important so that when I do this, there's room for other stuff. You can also, if you're listening carefully and you have a nice setup and YouTube has managed to translate this well, there is going to be like the guitar will be way out on the sides. If we listen when the guitar comes in, it's just like super wide. It's like there's no guitar in front of you. It's like way over here on the sides. So that's really important. So then when we do stuff like this, there's room for things. That's also the general idea behind like just the way you mix. It's mostly just volume. Very little EQ is going on. So there's not a whole lot to talk about the mix. You're listening to it going through ozone. Oh, that's probably another reason why my computer's having a hard time. But my mix sound levels are actually quite low. If we come over here. Okay, it's not quite as low. They've got some spikes up there. That's just dynamic range. So the whole idea when you mix something is you mix it down really low. And then when you want that dynamic range, you can have it. And then when you master it, you have to deal with how you're going to take it down again. So at the time, I was peaking around, like when my mix down started coming towards the final stages, what I'll do is I'll do a second mix down where after mastering, I will then bring out the elements I want to be loud. So that's why there are some peaks that go up there. But for the most part, it's down low. Before I set up the mastering stage, most of the stuff is sitting around -6. Every now and then I might have like a little bit above it. Not too much, but again, you want to use your ears as a judge. If you think your kick should just be that little bit louder, that's what the headroom is there for. Some of it's there so that when you master it, it'll sound loud. So you sort of got to pick. In this case, it's not terribly important that it's like incredibly super loud. But if you listen to other people's, they're like so loud. It's like insanely loud. I'm like, dang, did this person just put the limiter like all the gain, all the compression, just do it all, you know? I don't know. But sometimes they sure sound like that. So I was going for that. That's also why it sounds the way it does a little bit. I was using some reference tracks to sort of gauge mine. And at the end, we just have a little outro, dropped out some elements to give a little bit of relief to the listener after this big, exciting section. Here, in case you're interested, it's a detail, but I actually roll these things very slightly, and it creates a very different mood than if it was like bong, that would just sound not as great. But it was like brah, it sounds more like a human played it. So that's what the idea was there. This is session strings, if you're wondering. I'm not using these. These are named by default in my template. These are, so let's go ahead and just go through the remaining sounds I have not mentioned. So the remaining sounds I have not mentioned are, so you have the unicorda, the strummed acoustic. Now the LA Drama drums, I did get this on like an uber big sale. So when a company has sales that are like 80% off their product, you should never buy anything they ever put out at full price because they don't value their own products if they're willing to do that. So I just like waited until they had a stupid sale, and I was like, great, I'll buy your product for what you think it's actually worth. So that's what went down there. Anyways, that's my like sort of pissed off opinion, because then you got to wait for it to happen. I guess it's a good thing. I don't know. It's a sales strategy, you know, whatever. Rock the sales strategy. We've already talked about the drums. Now, as far as like the drums go, I do have other options, and these have like, if you have complete, you should really get them out and mess with the different loops and really observe the different sounds. Like if you're looking for a really tight sound, the 70s drummer can sound really pretty dope. And they match, you know, the reason they're named that decade is because these are like recording was like in the 60s versus the 70s versus the 80s was like totally different ballgame. Like it just completely morphed and changed as through these decades. If you've gone through like a recording program at any sort of a school and you learn about all the history, there were certain ideas that sort of went down in each decade. So these are pretty substantial, and it's kind of funny that we just chalk it up after that, just modern drummer afterwards. So it's just really interesting because it really happened with some different advances in technology. So it's worth looking at them all. They all work on the same principle, which makes them really nice to easily change out and get used to their different sounds. The Whistler, I just really wanted to try the Whistler because the demo is really pretty impressive. That's why I said it's a little bit different than I thought it was going to be. And the Rickenbacker bass, which actually I'm underutilizing this thing like crazy, but a lot of these things, they'll fit in a way so that they complement each other towards the track. I wasn't trying to like make one incredible line out of any one instrument. They all fit together by themselves. They sound a little unusual. You can tell that they were sampled, but not to like a grotesque degree, I guess is the way you could say it. So anyways, that's my breakdown of this thing. If you have any questions about this, let me know. If you have any insight or things that you wish I had mentioned, or maybe I spent too long on something and you would have liked to hear about something else, let me know. I normally don't do breakdowns, so it's kind of an interesting deal. What do you think this music would go to? What sort of a commercial deal would you go to there? I know I didn't really talk about the mix, but there really isn't a whole lot going on. There's the occasional like EQ, compression, and that's it. This wasn't meant to be like some crazy big track. It wasn't a big deal for me to have it mixed down. I just needed something that was like, you know, presentable. If you have any questions, again, let me know. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, because that is a big deal. And have a blessed day.